Right. Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. 9:31. I think that's a great time to start. I want to welcome everybody here. We do have quorum for the 39th meeting of the Budget Committee. As usual, if you want to watch, you can watch us on YouTube at Toronto City Council Live and or toronto.ca/council on your computer or tablet. We do have a sundown clause. We have to be done by 3:30 today, but I'm pretty sure we'll probably be done before that. So, any declarations of conflict under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. So I just want to go over where we are at as part of the process. We are now in day 3 of the presentations from staff, from all the different divisions and agencies. Today we're going to be looking at internal corporate services, Toronto Realty Agency, the Chief Financial Officer, and we're going to be getting an opportunity to ask questions to the City Manager's Office and Legal Services. All the preliminary budget notes are online, and you can look at them. We'll actually be having budget notes that are available today. Are there any questions? And so what will happen is we'll finish off today. We have one more day, which is Monday. And that will wrap up that portion of the budget process where we're listening to staff. We are on Monday going to be moving some motions for briefing note requests or briefing notes. And as I've asked the last couple of days, if you have any briefing note requests, get them into the clerk today. And of course, let the clerk give the clerk the permission so I can look at them and just review them. And what we've done in years past is I will probably do just one large motion on Monday for all the briefing note requests so they can go through. But we'll do that at the end of Monday's meeting. But it would be beneficial to everybody if we could at least look at them. Just in years past, we've looked at them and realized they can be done very quickly with questions. Sometimes they take a little bit longer, and we just want to get a sense of the timing for staff, but we'll move them all on Monday. Why don't there's a bit of a change in the, today. The city manager has asked if we could move on the list, other city programs, if we could do that one first. He has to get up to the opening of the subway. So he's made a request if we could do his item first. Now there's no presentation or question, there's just only questions and answers on his budget. So I will ask if there's any questions on the city manager's budget. And there'll be presentation. Yeah, there will be presentations following on the other divisions. What we'll do is we'll have a presentation on internal corporate services. There'll be a presentation on Toronto Realty Agency, and there'll be a presentation on the Chief Financial Officer. So if there's no questions on, okay. Councillor Carroll, whenever you're ready. We'll wait with anticipation for this question or two.
Yes, here it is. It's with respect to the participatory budgeting pilot. I'm wondering that it's here as an issue for discussion, but I'm wondering if the notes and the way it's been addressed in the actual financials of the budget take into account that the final report's not coming now until till May at the very earliest, and that there may be recommendations at that time. So does the budget take into account that council may direct them to begin work? Will there still be the staff to do so?
Yes, for the participatory budgeting, we will be reporting out on the final phase in January as far as the projects and the dollar amount. You're correct, we will be reporting in Q2 on the pilot and looking at recommendations to take forward to council. The position that we have now, which is a temporary position, has been removed, but that has been captured with a vacant position in strategic and corporate policy that can continue on that work. So depending on what the decision of council is, We will have to move forward with that in the second quarter as far as any financial decisions.
Okay, so that's my issue. So the position that was working on the pilot has been removed. So that position is not available to work with the consultants on the evaluation and the report that's not due until the end of Q2.
The position,
Who interfaces with the people doing that report?
there was a vacant position in strategic and corporate policy, which has taken on that role. There is the ability to do that. We had, we have someone still working full-time on this up until we do the final report out in Q2.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, the individual has been put into
Enough
another role.
continuity that people with firsthand experience will interface with the people doing the evaluation.
That's correct.
Okay.
But the same people, just different position.
Without going into camera, I got all my answers. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence.
Thank you, Council. Any other questions on the city manager's budget? Seeing none, the city manager is now relieved and can go off to the opening of the subway. Now, we do have, I just wanted to know, is legal here for this section? I don't know if they're down yet. Okay, we'll leave that, we'll leave that for the moment. Yeah, there's that, but it's also the opening of the subway. Oh, I'm sure that's in his DNA. Next will be, we're going to be doing a presentation from Internal Corporate Services, which include 311 Toronto, Facilities, Real Estate, Environment and Energy, Fleet Service, and IT. So what we have done, we'll have the presentation, then there'll be questions on the presentation, and then we'll work down through the individual divisions on any other questions that may be out there. Welcome, and
thank you, and thank you to the members of the Budget Committee. And I just wanted to say that we will do our presentation in 20 minutes, I was told, or less. So just a couple things I'd like to just open it up. Obviously, this organization, and the chair has named all the individuals within the group, the functions. The role that we play is to deliver, obviously, making sure that we drive value and actually through sustainable and innovative solutions to the organization so they can deliver, so the organization can deliver to the customers at the end of the day. That's our role, and to make sure that we enable the organization to deliver. The organization actually has just over 2,200 employees, which is probably about 5 or 6% of the total city numbers, as well as $400 million of actual operating expense gross, and it has just over $2.4 billion of capital from a 10-year perspective, and just about $335 million of capital, which is probably about 9% from a 10-year from the city side. So it's got a good amount of dollars here to be able to deliver, and has a huge mandate to be able to do so. If I go to the next page, the capital assets here, I think the important part of this page is just really talking to, and I won't go through it in detail, is that it's on systems and tools, it's on the real estate, which is a critical part, especially the vertical infrastructure side, and tied in with the new agency from a real estate and unlocking land value. It also has a fleet vehicle asset base, which is substantial, just over 5,000, and obviously it's worth billions of dollars, what you see on this page. So we have a huge asset grouping here that delivers city assets. On the next page, what you'll see here is basically this is the group overall. It's actually about 85% of this organization is focused on operating. And I would also say about 10% is management, and the rest are individuals focused on key projects or key deliverables. And then obviously one of the things that this organization does at the end of the day is enable the organization overall from a city perspective. On the next page, staffing trend, I think the key thing here for us to outline is the net reduction that we took overall. This is without enhanced services at this point in time, or new services, and this does not include capital. We've reduced by 11 individuals, positions in the organization. There is 5 incremental for new enhanced within IT and fleet, and then there's also, we reduced our base by 10 complement of 10 people, which is really important as we look at structure and how we deliver service. And the other part is delivering, we also have efficiencies of 6 people, which is really important because that's how we're paid to do this to make sure that we're efficient in the way we deliver service too. So that's between quite a few of the groups. So you'll see a decline year over year, and then obviously on page 23 and 24, there's more detail behind that, and we'll cover that in more detail. If we go to the accomplishments, the vacancy, a vacancy right now here. I think one of the things I would say here is we have had a huge improvement. 3.5 points is an improvement since last year. We still have obviously opportunity to do better, and we will. I think the one things that we have noticed is that there is obviously a very, I call it a war for talent in the market. We have certain skills in this organization that are critical, whether it's from a specialist skills within IT or whether it's within the fleet niche market that we work in. I would also say that 50% of what you see here in vacancies, we actually have work that we're doing with HR, and there's a process for actually recruitment. So these are the things that I would state in this chart that would be important from that perspective. And we're also working with institutions, other universities, and working with HR and looking at different ways of how we actually attract talent. And we also have more dedicated HR folks that we've asked for to be able to focus on our portfolios. Now, on the accomplishments, obviously great accomplishments overall. There's 2 pages of it. The focus here really is on modernization, transformation, as well as operational effectiveness, which you'll see here through the presentation. I think the important part here I would focus on would be, city building and how we plan. Obviously, making sure our processes in delivering and streamlining our service delivery is really critical, and you'll see that here, and making sure we're more efficient and effective in the way we operate. Also, digital transformation is really important here in streamlining process, making it easier for the public to actually enter into the city. Another area is investing in our talent, which is really important here. We need engaged individuals to be able to deliver on this, and we've had quite a few development programs, whether it's project management or whether it's actual development of specific individuals from a skill perspective and mentorship. And we're also reviewing our structures. We're actually looking within the FM structure, facilities within the fleet structure, to review the structures to make sure that they work. So our job is to make sure that we do that on a regular basis and looking at different ways of tweaking it as required. And obviously another key factor here is the climate change and the work that we're doing with Transform TO. So these are key accomplishments that the team has worked on. I'm sure you can read through these slides. The next thing is on the operating budget. Just hit on a couple things. We have a surplus of $1.5 million. Basically, what I would say, this is mostly salaries in particular, and there are basically some delays in some of our capital projects, and it's based on either scope change or readiness at the end of the day. So those are the key things that I would state on this chart that I would note at this point in time, and it's between our information technology side as well as within our FM side too, facilities management. Next page. On page 13, what you'll see here is key issues and challenges. Really, it's trying to make sure that we're optimizing how we manage our buildings at the same time as you're actually maximizing your capital delivery capabilities. The other one, obviously, is attracting talent, which I talked about earlier. The readiness is really important here, making sure that the delivery and the demands that we are asked of, that we are able and ready to deliver on it from an IT and from a facilities perspective, that we're there to deliver. And the other thing also I would state here too is the change in business processes, which is what we actually do quite a bit of work on. And process is actually more important sometimes than the actual system itself, is maintaining that business continuity as we're changing the structure. So it's really important, and that's something that we have to do with our partners across the city. The next page is to do with service objectives. I kind of talked about it as I was talking about the challenges here. Integration of portfolio planning. One of the key initiatives that we have is citywide real estate, and making sure that we're integrated from a citywide perspective. We will be working with the TRA to come back with that portfolio plan. The other one is delivering service excellence. That's our job. That's what we do. That's what we're paid to do, and making sure we're changing processes, making them more efficient. And the digital side of and what we're doing around digital becomes a real factor for us. The people development is a big focus for us on an objective. All our staff have these requirements within their performance reviews to be able to do that. Leveraging partnerships, especially from our information technology group, that is really critical. We can't do everything ourselves. We need to leverage our partnerships internally and externally in the market. as well as becoming, and we were starting to see that, a data-driven organization, so information, data to be able to make decision-making. And that becomes an important part, and reducing our environmental footprint. That becomes an important part for this business, and those are our actual objectives. When we look at modernization and transformation, there's about 2 pages of this in here. Our role is to make sure that we are thinking of this on a regular basis of how we change the way in which we deliver. Whether it's digital migration through a different channel, different traditional ways to, traditional to non-traditional, or whether it's to key initiatives with the citywide real estate and changing the structure in which we actually unlock land value, transform TO, the fleet consolidation, the oversight around fleet. One of the things we're working with many of our colleagues across the city is how we look at fleet and having that oversight for best practices around the organization. And then the other one is operational effectiveness. Everything we do is around making sure that we look at systems, processes, and the way in which we deliver quality of service to the end users and obviously to the public itself. Next one, going right to the budget, the actual pie charts in here. On the left-hand side, I would tell you that the key point there is 60% of what you see here in cost is actually salaries, $234 million. We actually hold 8% of utilities in here, which is about 33. And then we also use contracted services, which is about 25%. So between salaries, utilities, and contracted services, what you see here is 85% of this pie chart here. And on the right-hand side, and the way in which we actually do fund this is through property tax, which is 40%. Obviously, we have recovery with city divisions and other organizations within the city itself, about 30%, and capital recovery of about 11%. So that is the actual pie chart there. When we look at the actual key drivers, cost drivers, and one of the things, this is how we actually built up the 2018 operating budget. What you'll see here is we had obviously a $5 million pressure point here, and that is through a lot of what you see in the waterfall chart here. You'll see a previous year, $1.8 million that is annualization of IT in our environment office. You also see progression of about 1.7 salaries in compensation, and then you'll see inflation, which is about 2.4, which is to do with our contracts that we have with suppliers and other inflation targets. So, and then what we have to offset it is also actual $4 million of recovery to do with some of our divisions that offset some of the pressure point, as well as capital. So we have a $5 million pressure point that we had to actually look at. If you go to the next page, how we're actually dealing with it, what you'll see here is that we looked at it from many different aspects over here. And right now, you'll see efficiencies that we've brought to the table through our organizations. You'll see also different ways in which we actually looked at the base and actually delivering this. So looking at standards and making sure that we're delivering on our standards. And then what you'll see on the $1.8 million, which is 1.775, we have a bridging strategy with the IT organization and working with FPD. And that basically says that the IT organization has actually been able to absorb about $1 million of base or run rate that they have within their delivery of requirements from a city perspective, as well as absorb some of the growth. They can't absorb all of it, and you'll see that in the next page. And that's just over $1 million too. So they've been able to absorb about 900 of the base, as well as another $1 million, some of it and not all of it. So you'll see that as I go through it. So we have an $820,000 pressure at the end of the day. So the next page is what you'll see there. It is the 820. We have been able to with most of the organizations, obviously come in at 0 variance, and we've been able to get us down to about 0.5% at this point in time, which is quite good in a $400 million structure of this nature. The next page is new enhanced. This particular item, I won't talk too much to it, but it's with 311. It's basically related to, for the next 2 years, is trying to train the 311 organization that today does about 1.3 million transactions, manages that, with the revenue services piece and trying to cross-train our staff. So we have to actually pull people off their jobs to do the cross-training. So that's what we're asking for. That is embedded in our financials right now from a budget perspective. The next page is the complement changes here. I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's basically focused on the net amount. We talked about the 11 people on the operating side, and on the capital side, we have an actual 8 requests there, and it's to do specific capital projects within 301 Toronto as well as within the facilities management structure. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the following pages, but this is the complement, and the net impact is about 2.9. This does not include Transform TO, which I'll talk to a little bit about, and the corporate security discussion that we had last week at council. So the next page is just a little bit of what I just referred to. It's a preliminary, not included in the budget, and it really talks about, excuse me, Transform TO, which is about 27 complement, and of about $2.3 million in net. And then we also have the security piece, which is the bulk. So when you look at this particular page, what we're dealing with right now is really the Transform TO piece. With the actual security one, because council has requested us to go back and come back in March of 2018 with a fuller plan, we will be coming back with that request at that point in time if approved. But so this is what this is below the line at this point in time. It's not part of the budget that is in front of you, but it is obviously for consideration. Now, if we go to capital, key milestones on the capital side, it's very clear that we have large projects here, Union Station, St. Lawrence Market. We also have a huge amount of projects within the state of good repair with the facilities management, about 300. We have a huge amount of energy retrofits, which is really critical. The digital projects that we talked about, actually getting to a digital world, and that's what we're trying to do. The whole IT partnerships with city divisions, there is quite a few projects that have been very successful here, and a lot of feedback around them. And then obviously our fleet and work that they're doing internally as well as with solid waste. Those are really key success factors, and we have seen, and you'll see that within the numbers here, that we've had some real improvement also on the capital execution. If I go right to the capital budget variance, you'll see that quite a few of the organizations have actually had a huge improvement here. IT has improved 13.2 points, facilities about 13.9, and environment energy 19.4. So that really talks to the focus and the real planning that goes on to be able to deliver these capital projects. And on the facilities management side, on its own, without some of the bigger projects, which is called FREE, they actually, last year, they were at about 50, 55. They're at 70% now, which is great to see, as well as they have in their committed numbers right now for 2017 going to 2018. They have 50% of the commitments already done. So we should have a good 2018. Next page, key issues and challenges. I'm sure you've seen a lot of this from a lot of us. Completion rates are really important for us here, making sure that we deliver. ALDA and resiliency is a really important part of our portfolio, and ALDA has over $100 million, $190 million that's been added this year. Tools, processes to be able to deliver on a data-driven organization. That is what we need, and we need to continue working through that as an organization. The other thing that's really important here, these are challenges, the organizational readiness to actually accept some of these changes, so the capacity of it as well as the change management around this. And then obviously the last one is balancing between dollars and actual priorities and the needs of the organization. So that is something that I'm sure all of us actually are focused on, and it's a challenge not just with this organization. The service objectives at the end of the day are really around making sure we review our delivery models, so making sure that our models internally work, and is there anything else that we should look at outside, and we have that with the fleet organization right now. The other one also is making sure that the FM organization facilities delivers on 80% of the SOGR. It also has the IT organization delivering on 88% of its projects on time, on budget, and as well as making sure the major capital projects, and we have some of them right now, some of them are obviously have been around, whether it's Union Station or St. Lawrence Market, which I'll talk a little bit more about. But those are really critical. And obviously driving a digital environment. Those are kind of the focuses that we have as an organization to support the overall service requirements within the city itself. Next page. So on the 10-year plan, I would say that From our perspective, SOGR and the life cycle replacement is about $1.5 billion, and this is the next two pages here. And it's about, of the 2.45, so that's substantially, and that's 60% of our budget itself. On major capital, we have about $160 million here for Union Station, St. Lawrence Market, as well as work to do with George Street revitalization. These are really incredibly important projects that we finish off. Union Station will be completed this year. We have had some work that we're doing with Metrolinx on the work that they need to do overall around their platform. So we have a lot of work still to do there. We're working with them. So the intent is to have it completed this year, and Metrolinx has asked us to revisit some of our timelines, and we're doing that. We'll be coming back to council in early 2018. And also Transform TO, there's a budget here of about $116 million. And that is really important as part of moving the, obviously, our climate change agenda forward. AODA is about $196 million. And overall, our technology solution and our channel digital is just over $75 million all in all. So those are our 10-year capital plans. They're substantial, and obviously a substantial amount of the dollars are included in here to be able to move the agenda forward. Now, going to page 36, which is the pie charts here, what I would say here on page 36 is that 62% of what you see in our 10-year plan is to do with state of good repair, and about 20% with service improvement. As we move down into the latter 2 to 3 years of the 10-year plan, you'll see less on service improvement and more on state of good repair, and that is obviously very purposeful because we don't have a Union Station, we won't have a St. Lawrence Market. So that's on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, obviously where does money come from? It's quite clear. It's debt funded at $1.1 billion, recoverable of debt. Obviously we have that, as well as reserves of about $1 billion too. So that's where the money comes from. I won't go through this because I just talked about it, the service improvements in SOGR and how it actually, as we move down the next 10 years, you'll see a decline on the service improvements and a greater value on the state of good repair. If you go to the next page, which is page 38, the backlog, we're doing a lot of work on BCAs, which is building condition audits here, and looking at our facility condition index, which is really important to make sure that we're looking at the properties we have. And as we're reviewing the entire real estate portfolio with the agency and ourselves, because it's a model that is worked together between our structure with the TRA, we're going to make sure that we look at certain buildings and start prioritizing and coming back with the 2019 overall priority plan from a city perspective that looks at the entire asset base. So that's what we'll be doing. And so this may change a little bit, but what you'll see here is the intent is that there's some peaks and then it starts declining towards the end. Next page is the funding source here. I went through that earlier, so I'm sure you can read that on your own. And the next page, which is page 40, this really is the operating impact of capital, which is just over $600K in 3 positions. And then I'd like to focus a little bit on the page 41, which is related to the unfunded capital. And what you'll see here is we've actually been able to put some money into above the line. Josie Levita has helped us quite a bit in trying to do so. And we do have money for some of the generators that are above the line for the fire side. We do have money on office modernization, which is above the line. We're going to come back with a fuller plan on office modernization. And we also do have money on the CRM implementation, which is around digital, and we have money above the line too. What we'll come back with next year is a more detailed plan around some of these particular requirements in a business case format that will actually be more longevity than it is right now on a 1-year-by-year basis. So that is my presentation.
So do we have any questions on the overall presentation and cluster? And we'll go into each of the individual divisions after that, but just any overall questions? Councillor Carroll.
Yes, I'm going to be asking in more detail about this when we have 311 staff in front of us. I just wanted to ask you from the cluster perspective, what sort of priority you're putting on the issue of moving some of the 911 calls, police calls, into the 311 realm. Is that being given any priority?
It's a great question, and through the chair, yes, it is being given priority, and obviously Gary York can talk to it more. We're actually working with MLS and police on a plan that actually outlines the milestones that we need to get to, because we have there's about 9,000 calls that we know of right now, and we do get calls today. We actually have to triage them anyway, but it does have a priority, but we will be working in more of a detailed plan with police and MLS and a few other groups within the next month, actually, to come back and actually report back to the city manager.
So the conversion could happen within 2018? Because I see it as an issue for discussion, but I don't see any resources being attached to it. Do we think we can affect the change? Because
I think one of the things what we're saying on our side, for sure, on the 3-1, the intent is to affect a change on our side, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Nunziata.
As far as what we discussed at council last week, the security at City Hall, you didn't put any of that into your budget?
That's correct.
Because we deferred
Correct, Councillor.
everything.
Correct. You're absolutely correct. It's in the enhanced, but obviously it was for consideration. It was done prior to us going to council.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think there was 775, 780,000.
Just over 800, yes.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions, Councillor Davis?
Is there one spot, when you accumulate these, or put all these things together, is there one spot where there is the list of, I see the list of unfunded capital, but is there a list of the unfunded, are there any unfunded operating new and enhanced? Other than
So
Transform TO, which I know there's a bunch left out.
So on page 24, Councillor Davis,
Okay.
it's really transformed TO.
But other than that,
And it was the security, which we have not, that's not approved.
right, so, but there are new enhancements that are included.
Yes.
So on the, if I were to go back, which I haven't brought with me. I'll
The
have to
sheet,
open
the operating
The
sheet.
sheet that has,
Transform TO is the bulk of it.
no, but there's a sheet that says enhancements included and enhancements not included. On the side, that's enhancements included. What have you got other than Transform TO?
Not included. No, it's just transform TO.
No, included.
So
Nothing? There are no other?
CSR, so it's the page, this page 22, that is what we included, Councillor Davis. This is the incremental requirement to do the training between our CSRs, the traditional CSR versus the revenue CSRs, and just doing the integration. And that's a 2-year plan, and this is half of the plan right now. That is a,
I thought I saw some others, but it's okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much. I think you'll be staying up for the next presentation anyway.
I'll be coming.
Oh, no, sorry, we're going through individually. My
I'll
apologies.
come back.
Right. So we'll start with 311. Councillor Carroll, did you have some questions? I believe on 311?
Yeah.
Are they coming here or just?
Hi, Councillor.
They'll just stay in their
There he is.
Hi.
Hello. So you know where I'm going. We had a serious discussion about this the police budget is where it is, and you're not having to put an enhancement in it because we're down 600 officers. But we've gone down the officers, and then we've not made the changes. So this has to happen in 2018, or you'll see us adding the officers back again. So it's here as an issue for discussion, but you've met your target. So how is this being incorporated in training? How are we going to affect this change in 2018? Because I don't see any ask.
Through the chair, the challenge is around the 9,000 calls, we're making sure that we do the proper analytics and the data analysis. And right now, as it seems, that there's a bit of duplication around that 9,000. So we're actually are currently managing some of those calls initially.
Yeah.
There's another additional 30,000 calls that we're working with TPS to make sure that we have a solid plan of transition and also understanding the impacts and the communication strategy to the public. Because at the end of the day, if we don't responsibly look at this number, it could affect the ability for us to respond out to the public in a timely fashion. So we're committed actually to expediting this and making sure that you see credible changes in 2018. It will not wait till 2019 because we want to make sure that we manage the impact of the public, but also the brand of the city.
Okay. And is there an impact? The other change, one of the changes is going to be the crossing guard thing, which will take until 2019, council's already adopted that plan. That will have an impact on 311 as well, will it not? Because that will likely become the place where people call. If there's any kind of crossing guard situation, are we going to be able to do the cross training to be ready for that?
Through the chair, yes, we will be. Once again, it's really important that we have this management framework set up between MLS, 311, and Toronto Police to make sure that we actually capture the actual scripting and the nuances, and also the time of events to make sure we can actually schedule the resources appropriately. So we're definitely doing that, and I expect within a month and a half to have some more credible analysis towards this endeavor.
Oh, okay, but I don't see an ask there. So your development unit is working on this? They're not needing to set up a separate unit or anything?
There's a special task force that's working together with MLS.
Task force.
Yes, with MLS, 311, and TPS, as well as Strategic Communications, to make sure that there's some dedications and some urgency associated with this.
Okay, and then lastly, I wanted to ask about the dissemination of the data. How is that going? The scrubbed stuff that was going to wards. All these new functions, we'll start to get those in ward lists if we're requesting them. And how are we doing on open data?
In regards to the data, we have different systems. So we are working together with the Toronto Police Services because our databases and our technology is a little different. So we have our data readily accessible, but we're working with Toronto Police to make sure that we can make sure we're measuring apples to apples versus different experiences. So that's taking a bit of time because we want to make sure at the end of the day, what we commit to, we can deliver on.
Right. Since you're talking to MLS, the reason I asked that question, I don't know if you've already discussed this in the task force. The biggest one, the biggest bulk of these is that the constant calls that are going to 911, sadly, Mr. Chair, which is a real waste of resources, is the call that says, my neighbor is chronically parking all night. And there something like 20,000 of them, which makes the 9,000 count still in question. You're getting some of those now. A lot of them are going to 911, which is an expensive place to send the wrong call. But once those go to 311, data on where that's happening in our ward, chronic all-night parking, the help it gives MLS to figure out where the real rooming house neighborhoods are, that will begin to be available to councillors?
Through the chair, once we've transitioned that activity appropriately across to the city, absolutely through the open data process, as well as our digital transformation in terms of improving the CRM technology as well. You'll definitely have readily access to that data and more.
All within this budget. That's a bargain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Councillor Nunziata.
Yeah. So I remember a couple years ago that we asked and actually moved a motion that, so when 311 gets complaints from constituents, the local councillors are not notified of these calls that come in, correct? And that we had asked if there's any way that the councillors can get notification of, in fact, the calls that have come in. Because what happened is that constituents will call us weeks later and yell and scream and say, I've called 311, nothing's happened, and blah, they never got back to me, and then they come through me. So why don't we get a list of those calls that come in so it helps us deal with our constituents?
Through the chair, actually, we're revisiting how complaints are being managed entirely across the enterprise. So what you're experiencing from a council perspective, it's not just 311, but several divisions that do things and how they manage the complaints very differently in their own unique siloed ways, which does not provide value to yourself or to your constituents. So what we're doing is making sure now it's a centralized, consistent process around the complaints protocols. And if we're hearing that there's a demand or a requirement from yourself and from your colleagues to have access to that data, we'll make sure that that's in the strategy going forward as well. And seeing from a privacy perspective what we're able to communicate and what we can't.
So when is that going to happen?
It's underway right now. We have an endeavor underway to not only look at complaints, but also how we deal with escalations and irate residents as well.
Well, because when constituents call 311, they think they're calling you. They think they're calling the counselor. And they'll call the counselor and say, oh, I called 2 months ago and you didn't respond. But they didn't call us, they called 311.
Right.
And we get into I don't know if other counselors have that issue, but I do a lot in my ward. So we have to put a system in place where the counselors at least are aware, where, respond. Do you have a list of all the complaints that come in from residents?
Through the chair, we have...
Complaints about 311.
Through the chair, I even have complaints about myself. So absolutely. We have to be very transparent and fair.
You have a list of them?
We have a list in the database, and we're responsible to responding. So for a good example, I received a complaint yesterday, around how we actually didn't do the right thing in regards to providing a resident with the proper contact information for a city employee. And that request was a complaint, or the initial complaint was against 311, and the request was for me to rectify that and address that, which I have. So at the end of the day, the complaints are part of the process that we do, and it keeps us on our toes, and it holds us accountable to making sure that we respond in a timely fashion.
So there's a slight increase in your operating, and that is, what's that increase?
Part of it is the natural attrition. We have a lot of people we've actually increased in terms of our staffing levels as well. Therefore, our operating capital budget will also be impacted by that. Not to mention from unionized environment, COLA and things of that nature, that impacts the day-to-day costs because we are in a unionized environment as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions on 311? Okay. Next is, sorry, Councillor Davis, I didn't see your hand.
Talking about that.
Yes,
I wanted to ask about part-time, temporary versus full-time jobs. You mentioned in your notes that you were using more part-time staff. Could you explain the percentage or some way to identify how much part-time workers we're using?
Through the chair, so we're really at about a 50-50 split in terms of the FTE allocation. So 50% of our staff are full-time staff and 50% are part-time.
Really?
Yeah, and one of the reasons for that, to be honest with you, is the fact of flexibility and also impact on the quality of life. In the contact center world that we manage sometimes, if you look at some of the impact to our staff and the well-being of our staff, it is a situation that some of the calls are positive, some of them are not positive. Some calls have...
I just wanted to know the percentage.
50-50.
50-50?
Yes.
That is a complete shock to me. On the utilities and hydro, I know you're training to have our staff be able to answer more detailed and complex tax and utility questions. With hydro, I recall moving a motion that we should go and seek funding from hydro to take on their work. So I presume that we're doing that, are we?
Through the chair, yes, we are, but we've agreed on a particular threshold, which is 10%. So once their volume hits our operations at 10% or greater, we're charging back that cost. And we have a regular conversation on a monthly basis around that activity, and we have a dollar figure that's associated with that activity right now.
Okay. And what is the customer service relationship management program that what is it? It's a capital, I know it's an IT investment, but.
It is through the chair, but it's one of those particular initiatives that can be very transformational to the city, not just the 311. And it's about having a 360-degree view of the customer interactions and having basically an omni-channel environment. So that means our residents, if they choose to use the phone channel, they can. They can use email. They can go on fax. They can go on the computer online, and they can do a lot of self-service as well. And what we're trying to do basically is catch up to the rest of society that are using digital technology and platforms. So our residents, our consumers, our businesses already use this through the banks and other areas of investments and interactions. From a city's perspective, we're a bit behind there.
What is it? I still don't understand what.
Well, what is it? It's a solution. It's a technology. It's an engagement. It is It is software that allows us to interact with the consumer, that manages also our interactions with our clients. So a good example, our phone channel right now, per transaction, if we're talking about, let's say, arbitrarily 1.5 million transactions. The cost per transaction is approximately $16 per transaction. Now, leveraging this new technology, the cost per transaction goes down to anywhere from 10 cents per transaction to $1.
I don't want to know what the cost is. I'm trying to understand what it is.
Well,
Is it allowing you to better connect with the divisions?
and also allowing the citizens to connect better with the city. That's what the commitment is. The problem is, right now, we forced our residents to use just one specific channel, which is really the telephone channel, and sometimes the in-face counter channel as well.
Okay, so I saw that section as well, where it said, you know, you are using email, there's email interactions have gone up significantly, and they take a lot more time, and you're looking to use more social media.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about, enhancing our capacity to use those channels?
Absolutely, as well as more channels.
Okay. So do you measure, what's always been an issue for us is, say there's a Toronto water complaint, there's a burst pipe, frozen pipe, all that stuff, and we went through this during the storm.
Yes.
What happened was your response times were good,
Right.
and you passed it on to Toronto Water, and then it went into some black hole. So how are you improving the information flow and the end delivery of the service? Do you know at the end of the day if that service has been completed? And are you monitoring how long it takes from when you hand it off to when it's completed? Because
through the
their
chair-
measures do not measure that.
Right. Through the chair, that's a fantastic question. And with the new technology that we're looking at, we'll have those metrics. And that's about enhancing the customer experience. So it's not just, taking that incident and saying we're on it. It's about measuring the activities and the milestones towards rectifying that. And not only us having that data, but our residents having that access to that data as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much. And we're done with 311 now. We'll work our way to facilities, real estate, environment, and energy. Are there questions? No committee members. Councillor Davis? We're doing, no, fleet is next. We're just doing facilities, real estate, environment, and energy. Free. Okay, Councillor Davis, you can find what you're looking for, I guess. Councillor Annunziata has some questions.
Yeah, so on page 24, that's not included, the transform TO. So last year, we only funded partially, and we didn't fund the 100% last year, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
So what's on this page, is it from last year? Like, are we funding what we didn't fund last year?
I'm just going to go to, that's part of it, and definitely it didn't all come in last year in that fashion, but that's what you're funding now for the full project.
That's in the budget.
It's not, there is the 20-odd headcount plus the 2-point-some-odd million dollars. That is not in this budget. It's here in front of the budget committee, and obviously it's below the line at this point in time. It's not funded. But we have, to your point, Councillor, we have funding from last year that got analyzed into this year with some headcount, about 700,000. But we don't have the rest of it.
And you couldn't find the money to fund that?
This is quite substantial. This is a city-wide requirement. It would be very hard for this organization to do that by itself.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Davis. Did you questions, Councillor Carroll? Okay.
Well, I will just add, I'm looking at the new briefing note, which is helpful. So I'm looking at this scoring system that you're using. So we created a strategy, and now as we get to the year, there's a scoring system that looks at, okay, if we can't do it all, what are we going to do? Is that, am I
Prioritization.
reading this right?
That's actually a very good question. What we did is we had requested over $20-odd million. And what we wanted to do is to prioritize, because certain things had to come first than others, and where we had the biggest bang. And that's what you'll see here is the timing. And it was a good way of demonstrating that we were obviously very focused and being very methodical in the way we were actually doing this.
So when I expect, because there's so much not included here, I expect this to be one of the superstars of the deputation nights. We're probably going to have the environmental community, the fans of Transform TO are probably going to be showing up to make deputations. Is this prioritization, is it easy to reflect back to the public so that we can say, these are the things that are included and here's why? So that then they can see at a glance why we may be adjusting what the original strategy said to do year over year, and here's how we decided. Will it be easy for them to see, or have we got to make sure they all read this and then go back and look at the project?
So through the chair, you definitely are correct. There will be many people that support this. I think what the public will want to see, and many others will, that we have a plan and that it's been methodically thought of and how we actually do this throughout the next 2 to 3 years. And that's what you'll see here is there's an engagement strategy here, which is really critical with the public. And I think that this has momentum and it continues into the following year too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Davis, we're ready for you.
So thank you, Councillor Carroll, for pointing out the briefing note. Yes, this is exactly what people feared, that there would be this ranking with that motion. But it takes, you can go to the next page and find the costs and then put it against the columns. It seems to me, I mean, if we're going to go through this exercise, you might as well have put the costs associated with each of these beside it, but
It is.
anyway, I mean, that's clearly doable.
Sorry, page 7 has that, Councillor.
No, I know, but you've got to go, okay, so how much are the top 5?
Okay.
You're going to have to go and pick through and,
It is important to note that every strategy is actually accounted for in the plan, and it's just timing.
So
But
through
it's
you,
all accountable.
Mr. Chair, I think on page 7 of the briefing note, there's a table B that I think
Yeah.
tries to do that, and it's put the dollars, and it's shown you the values over time. So it's applied the priorities, and then it's applied the dollars.
which table is that?
Page 7,
7 of the briefing note.
page 7.
No, I looked at that. But they're not, is this the same ranking? Okay. Okay, it is.
We apply.
They may be.
Any more questions, Councillor?
One of them was the, on the service performance measures, the volume of, this is on page 18 of the notes. The volume of facilities maintenance work where the orders are completed have fallen quite significantly in 2017, but they go up again in 2018. So I'm just wondering how you're addressing facilities maintenance completion. There are a number of service standards in here that are very low, like completion rates on page 17, completion rates at 48%, for instance, for asset facility management preservation, or these are discontinued. Yeah, anyway, the facilities, volume of facilities maintenance work orders completed. Maybe you can address that.
Yeah, so through the chair, as we start to have greater reliance on preventive or planned maintenance, the volume would reduce in number of work orders. Using the reactive maintenance, you have a higher volume of work orders. So as we progress to introduce the new technology and the preventive maintenance plans, you'd see a drop.
as you do preventative, you will...
As you do more preventative, then the
Right.
amount of reactive goes
Okay.
down.
Okay, fleet is different. You're reducing custodial positions at St. Lawrence. Are there jobs in here that are affected? There's confidential, I saw a reference to confidential documents, which I don't have. I presume I have them somewhere, but purple sheets. There are real jobs that are going to be eliminated, right?
There are a couple of positions at Memorial Hall, and those positions are being transferred to other locations. But at that specific site, we are utilizing other part-time staff that do other duties to now capture the duties that were done by the couple that are being reduced.
It says 3.6 custodial positions.
So,
Is that work being contracted out?
no. It's just been transferred to other locations.
So how can you do without 3.6 people?
Sorry?
It's such a small facility.
Well, two
Councillor?
positions through the chair are
Are
through.
these confidential?
There, yeah, you got to be careful in getting
Okay.
into the details. We're getting into confidential matters.
Okay, it's in the public document.
The St. Lawrence is actually doing they're actually taking on the role themselves, and we are no longer providing that.
Oh, I see. Okay, as part of the reorg, whatever, yeah. Transform TO, sorry. There
Almost,
was a number in here about the revenue from our solar installations, and it seemed pretty low to me. Have we seen, how much are we now generating in terms of revenue? I read something that was 75,000 or something.
last question.
So through you, Mr. Chair, the solar, our renewable energy initiatives are generating will be generating close to 3.8 million.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And over time, we've got plans to expand that.
Thanks, Cal.
Definitely, yes. It's built into the existing base budget, but also with enhancing it if council approves the Transform TO initiative also.
Thank you, Councillor. We snuck that last one in. Next is fleet services. Any questions on fleet services? Committee members are good. Councillor Davis.
I wanted to ask where the contracting out is at.
Through the chair, the contracting out, most of the contracts were in place as of December 1st of this year. So it's just finally starting to come into full effect now.
And so that is now, so it went in when? Sorry.
As of December 1st of this year, we finally had all of the contracts in place.
As in just 2 weeks ago?
That's correct, yes. Yeah, so it, through the chair, motion was in the end of October 2016, and with issuing RFQs and Ps and getting all of, there's 16 contracts that were put into place. That's the time it took.
A year. More than a year. Okay, and I always ask about bicycles. Are more people using bicycles?
Through the chair, we certainly, and you can refer to our fleet services website, we certainly put a lot of effort into the bicycles aspect where possible, and we will continue to report back on that as part of our Green Fleet Plan progress updates.
But are more people using bicycles? Do you know?
A few more. Again, so the numbers aren't substantial. There's only a couple of hundred bicycles being used, but it's a few more than there were 2 years ago, yes.
Okay. I have more questions, but I haven't been able to even get open the file yet. I'll do it directly.
Thanks, Councillor.
Okay.
Okay, next we'll go on to IT. Questions of IT? Committee members seeing none? Councillor Davis? No. You're off the hook, IT. Did you hear that? Okay, next, for now. Next, we'll be doing Toronto Realty Agency, and there'll be a quick presentation on that.
Start the car.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Welcome again to the
Begin when
board
you're ready.
members. I have beside me Antoinette Tamilo, who's the transition lead interim CEO for the new agency, who has been with us for the last couple of months, and Jaspreet, the CFO for the new agency also. And I'll be here to support them as they go through the presentation with the TRA.
Thank you. Given that there has been a lot of review by council to approve the mandate of this agency and the launching of this organization over the last several months, I thought I would save us time and not drag you through all those details, and really provide you some highlights on the mandate of the organization and the new service delivery model and the structure, and review a bit of the complexity of this organization. So if I can point you to slide 6, which highlights the mandate of the agency. And the mandate is all about enabling city building. It's program focused, making sure that that's taken into consideration, and really taking an approach with managing the portfolio from a governance standpoint, stewardship, and the city has a very complex and vast portfolio of properties, and really having that one place that you have oversight of it. If you look at slide 7, there is an overview of the integrated service delivery model. We are in the early stages of the evolution of the TRA, and there's really 2 pillars to that structure, if I can call it that. The TRA is going to be responsible for managing the city's real estate portfolio, develop city buildings and lands for municipal purposes, and deliver client-focused real estate solutions to city divisions. Agencies and corporations will be working hand in hand with the DCM and her team, who will be responsible for the facilities management and real estate services teams, who are focused on the coordination and execution of day-to-day activities. As you can see in slide 8, the integrated service delivery model will evolve over time. We're in the early stages, and it's going to be a journey. And the approach, and you've heard the term, I think Josie's used it a lot, which I think is the right way to approach this, is to crawl before you walk, before you run. Although I sometimes feel that we need to run, but we're following that approach. If you look at slide 9, you have the TRA governance structure. We have a new board made up of 9 directors, which includes 3 councillors, which were recently appointed by council. All employees currently in BT and TPLC will be transferred to this new agency. We're not asking for more money, and Jaspreet will review the financials in a couple of minutes. The 2 corps will be used as vehicles to support non-municipal projects, and that's within the BT vehicle, and operational at TPLC with the port lands. All municipal projects and initiatives will be handled by TRA and will go to council for approval. I will now ask Jaspreet to review the financials.
Thanks, Antoinette. So before I get into the TRA budget, let me just turn this on, my apologies. Before I get into the TRA budget, it's important to understand what expenditures make up part of this budget, and more importantly, how those expenditures will be offset by revenue from the agency to get to our net zero position. The 11.4 million in total G&A costs that you see, it's highlighted in green on slide 13 here. That represents the total expenses of the agency. And these costs will be, I apologize, one second. These costs will be recovered through a cost recovery approach by the agency through the services it performs on behalf of the corporations, and those corporations being TPLC and Build Toronto. The corporation's abilities to pay for these services will be dependent on their ongoing operations. As can be seen on this slide, both TPLC and Build Toronto will generate sufficient revenue, thank you, in order to cover the service fees that will be charged to them through the agency. And that's really what we were trying to highlight on this slide. As Antoinette mentioned on slide 9, even though the agency and the corporation are 3 distinct separate entities, from a governance, management, oversight perspective, it's really the TRA that's looking at the whole model. And through previous discussions that we've had with several of the folks around the table here, we've constantly been asked what this consolidated view would look like. So that's why we've put this slide here really as information purposes, so everyone can see how does it all come together and what does it look like. Moving on to the next slide. This represents the detail of the expenses for the TRA budget. So in order to put these, this budget together, the process that was undertaken was that each corporation, TPLC and Build Toronto, went through their regular budgeting process, assuming business as usual. At that point, the HR and administration costs were extracted from the corporations and brought into the Toronto Realty Agency. And that's what you see in the TPLC and Build Toronto columns here on slide 14. And that's what we refer to as our opening budget that you'll see on slide 21 as well. The next column there labeled adjustments for consolidation. That is, it totals $206,000 of savings, and it's really made up of service efficiencies that were achieved by moving TPLC and Build Toronto under one entity in the amount of $3 million, and those again are reflected on slide 22. And those savings are then offset by the new positions that we added to the agency to enhance the services that it will provide in the amount of $2.8 million, and those again are referenced on slide 23. Taking a look at those individual line items, we can see that the bulk of the costs do relate to HR costs, and this is typical of a service organization. I'll take a moment and I'll just walk through the adjustments for each line item just to provide a little more context and detail into what's making those up. So starting off with HR costs, we've got $163,000 there. That's made up of $1.8 million related to the new positions, again, primarily for the new asset management functions and CRM functions that we're adding. We've got one-time costs to get the agency up and running in the amount of $679,000, and that's all being offset by savings of $2.4 million related to some duplication and redundancies that existed between the two corporations. From a finance and legal perspective, we've got $10,000 there. That's really just additional audit fees related to the new agency. Marketing and communications, that $25,000 is the result of, we've got $70K of one-time costs relating to new branding initiatives and the website redesign for the new agency, and that's being offset by about $45,000 worth of CRM, savings related to CRM costs that will now be done in-house versus being outsourced previously. Looking at the occupancy costs there, we've got savings of about $346,000. That relates to the savings resulting from subleasing TPLC's current office space, so that's what's sitting there. The board fees adjustment of $106,000, that's really made up of, we've added $230,000 related to board fees for the new Toronto Realty Agency, and we've subtracted the $124,000 you see there related to Build Toronto, because of course that will no longer be required as we're all being governed under the TRA. So that gets us to our total, office services as well. We've got savings there of about $164,000, and that really relates to efficiencies created from co-locating the two corporations. That takes us to our total of $11.4 million, which is our 2018 budget. And compared to 2017, That reflects a 0.2% decrease from the combined 2017 budgets of TPLC and Build Toronto. So to Antoinette's point, from a total basis, this is not costing more in terms of launching this new agency, and that can also be seen on slide 20 of your deck. On the revenue side, and I've kind of mentioned this before, but I'll reemphasize it, the TRA will maintain a net zero budget, and this is going to be facilitated again through the cost recoveries that it receives by charging service fees to the agencies, to the corporations and to the city as well. I also want to draw your attention to the asterisks that you see right under the chart on slide 14. What this highlights is that on November 27th, when we presented our budget to our board, the board had recommended that we add a contingency for human resources and professional services in the amount of $879,000, which represents 10% of HR costs. This is outlined on slide 24. This provision would allow for TRA to be agile and adapt to any unpredictable demands as we become operational. It's important to note that this provision is not included in the $11.4 million that you see in total expenses here, and is being referred to the 2018 budget process for council consideration as a below-the-line item. Back over to you, Antoinette.
Thank you, Jaspreet. If I can point you to slide 16, just to go through some of the, I'm sorry. If I can point you to slide 16, just to highlight some of the service accomplishments in 2017. 2017 was a really critical year for getting the groundwork done to facilitate the launch of the new agency in 2018. As you can see from the slide, there were many activities involved in establishing the real estate model and getting the agency set up. From an engagement perspective, the conversations have started to happen among divisions, agencies, corporations to help everyone understand the mandate. And we're starting to see collaboration happening on this holistic approach with real estate projects starting to emerge. So it's very exciting when you think about things like the Etobicoke Civic Center, the Rail Deck Park, and their co-location opportunities, just to name a few. This is a significant change for staff as well. And although the team is quite excited about the opportunities that it will present, there were some difficult decisions that were made to transition to this new structure. And I believe we've made the right decisions for the startup of the organization. And I do want to acknowledge that the team, while all this was going on, both within TPLC and BT, have done an amazing job of just keeping the projects done. I call it keep the wheels on the bus and keep going, and that's happened. And we want to make sure that that continues in the new year as well. Slide 17 provides a summary of what we believe the focus needs to be going forward. To date, we've done a lot of good planning and thinking around the model, but we need to operationalize it now. Part of it is building out the TRA functions, the new TRA functions, and that's the CRM and the portfolio strategy team. Before we can even start analyzing data, we got to figure out where the data is, and that's across the model and across the city. And that's going to be critical for us to build that strategic portfolio plan for the city real estate assets. Our ability to prioritize real estate needs and deploy and leverage resources will be critical as well. And lastly, maintaining revenue sources for the corporation that support TRA will be critical. For example, the Portland's flood protection project will impact the recurring revenue from leases and licenses, and the availability of surplus lands to develop financial returns from non-municipal development will also be critical. If I can wrap up with slide 18, the 2018 preliminary operating budget will allow TRA to implement the new real estate services model. I won't read through each of the item. I think slide 18 summarizes the key service objectives and what our priority actions are, and we've spoken through them and highlighted them through the presentation. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Questions? Councillor Nunziata?
So on page 14, where you say the TRA board approved a recommendation, so this is your enhanced. Is that what your request is?
Sorry,
Are you asking for an enhanced?
the board has asked us, that the 11.434 is not the enhanced amount?
No, I understand. So this is what you're asking for?
Yes.
Yeah.
But our board has directed us to ask for the additional amounts.
And what is it for?
It's to give us the flexibility as projects come to be able to address resourcing needs. So, there is an anticipation that we will, as we go through the portfolio, identify new opportunities. So there was concern that we would not have the flexibility to respond as quickly as we should. So that was the concern of the board.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? I just want to clarify that, so the additional request of $879,000 for the contingency. So in the event that we don't support that, we don't give it to you, do you have the ability to deal with any items that may be coming up during the year? As I understand that when this was made at the board, it was primarily for contingency, so there would be no timing issue of, coming back to City Council or coming back to us for permission. I think I understand the gist of why it was done, but if this is not supported, do you still have the ability to deal with issues that come up?
Yeah, what we're doing is leveraging resources across the organization, not just within the agencies. And at this point in time, we feel there'll be opportunities, if they are identified, to come in when we reforecast, to, present a business case and deal with it at that time.
Okay. Joseph?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I think slide 20 actually gives a really good picture of what the agency has done. Essentially, I think you heard that they took the base budgets of TPLC and build and recalibrated it based on what the new agency should look like. So in city budget speak, so what you have is a base budget that's been reduced to show the consolidation. It has new and enhanced funding that's been included to allow for the 2 new mandates that are part of the new model, and that's the 11.4 million. And then there's an additional on slide 24, the 879 contingency request from the board. So there's always an opportunity, and that's over and above, and that's what's below the line. So I believe that if Committee Council did not proceed with this for this year, they still have some capacity and opportunity to come back through a variance report if something emerges, should they need it, or if the committee and council decide to give them something less than this amount or up to this amount, it creates some of that flexibility.
So one of the things that we've talked as a model, because we're working all together, we will be looking and prioritizing together, and we'll work with TRA, with my organization and others to be able to do that. And if we get to that point that Josie just referred to, we will come back with a variance report.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure that was good. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, Councillor Davidson?
So the consolidation has resulted in the elimination of 14 positions, which you call redundant. Could you just identify what those, are those redundant positions, have they been identified already?
Yes, we rolled out.
And the affected people know?
Yes, we rolled out the new structure in the end of October. Staff have been apprised, and we've added 10 new positions for, that are new roles and new capabilities that this organization will have. There were built-in redundancies because you had 2 separate organizations and there were similar roles. You know,
What kinds of jobs then were eliminated?
Councillor,
Can we go in camera if we're going to?
Councillor, I'm concerned that you're getting into specifics of jobs, though that would be in camera items. So we have to be very.
When will we be able to go into camera to talk about these purple sheets?
On the 12th.
The 12th. I just want to be assured that, for instance, you know, that projects that Build was working on are going ahead, and that the kind of jobs that were necessary to make projects successful and complete moving forward with those projects, that we haven't eliminated those jobs. If there was duplication of administrative functions, that kind of thing. I just wanted a more general sense of where the changes were. But I'd like to go into camera, I guess, at some point.
Councillor, what I could suggest is if we could do that, I just spoke with staff, we could set up some time on Monday to be able to go through that plus there are other confidential items. But we could set up some time for this, plus the other confidential items on Monday. Yeah, there's 3 or 4 different briefing notes on confidential items across the city, and we could, again, wouldn't be appropriate to just do the one now. We could do it all on Monday.
That's fine.
So if I just may, Chair, just to the councillor's question, the bulk of this is administrative duplication. I just want to confirm that with you, and the projects are not being jeopardized that are being worked on.
Because
Anyway,
presumably there were two
let's not get into a dialogue here. Okay.
doing 2 full-time jobs. Now
Okay,
someone's
thank you.
doing 2 full-time jobs.
Okay, next we're going to go on to,
Yeah, but 14.
we'll be doing a presentation on the CFO, Chief Financial Officer.
Listen.
So this presentation will be dealing with the Office of the CFO, Financial Services, and the Office of the Treasurer. Mr. Fragg, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And
good morning, everybody. Joining me is Mr. Bruce Shintani. Bruce is the Director of Finance and Administration of the Office of the CFO. We're just getting ready, and I think the presentation will be up shortly. I just wanted to refer you, this won't take very long at all. I'll probably do it within 15 minutes, give or take. Slide 4 illustrates for you the program map, which provides the types of services that the office provides. This program map essentially mirrors the organizational chart, which is shown on the next slide. In terms of staff complement, we have 776 positions within the financial services cluster. The majority of these positions, some 657, are within the treasurer's oversight, where the bulk of financial and transactional processes are undertaken. And these would include areas within accounting, payroll, purchasing, and revenue services. The next slide shows our historical staffing levels. You can see that our footprint has declined over the past decade from a staff complement of 900 positions back in 2009 to 742 in 2017. That's effectively a decrease of some 160 positions over a decade. Our 2018 budget submission, however, requests the addition of 3 positions, which will bring the total from 742 to 745. That's, of course, if it's approved. In terms of our vacancy rate, we're making really good progress on filling vacancies, and we expect that our year-end variance rate to be in the order of about 2.7%. Mr. Chair, the next 4 slides, slides 9 to 12, just highlight for you our achievements in 2017. I couldn't possibly give it enough justice in the time that I have available. So I'm just going to focus on a handful of key achievements. And, you know, you have the presentation before you, and I would invite you to read it at your leisure. It'll give you a good appreciation of the type of work that we've done in 2017. And needless to say, Mr. Chair, this committee has firsthand knowledge of the work done by our financial planning staff in delivering the 2018 budget and the budget process, and the tremendous effort that's gone into that initiative. You know, we've brought forward the rate-supported budgets, which were approved at the last council meeting, and again, a tremendous amount of efforts being undertaken to support the 2018 tax-supported budget. That group has also completed the financial control bylaw in 2017, which will be brought forward in Q1 of 2018. Yes, Councillor Davis. The anticipation, I know, is killing you. So our corporate finance group provided considerable support to a number of key city building initiatives, not the least of which is the Toronto-York Spadina subway extension, which is going into operations, I believe, this Sunday, and there's an opening ceremony this morning. We've been there from day one. That was about a decade ago, providing financial oversight and support, and Councillor Carroll's intimately familiar with those relationships. Corporate finance was also involved in 2017 in completing a DC background study. And I know Councillor Diciano is not so much intimately familiar with this, but he is deeply engaged in that process. We're going to be introducing a DC bylaw early in the new year. I expect it to be before Executive Committee either January or the second meeting in the new year. That bylaw will bring to the city hundreds of millions of additional revenue to help support our capital program. In 2017, we were also the first and only municipality in Ontario to approve investment policies in accordance with the prudent investor standard. And this will allow us to access a whole host of asset classes, equities, infrastructure, or real estate, which will hopefully advance or enhance our returns on our $6 billion plus investment portfolio. In terms of the treasurer and the work that they've been undertaking over the course of the 2017, I just wanted to highlight two key initiatives, two key accomplishments. They relate to the progress that has been made on the OMERS front towards merging our legacy pension funds into the OMERS pension plan. We've also succeeded in transitioning about 80,000 employees, retirees, and dependents to a new benefit carrier, and that was a really tremendous accomplishment in 2017. In addition to that, for the 10th consecutive year, we received the prestigious GFOA Canadian Award for financial reporting, tremendous accomplishment. I would be kind of remiss if I didn't mention some of the long and key performance metrics that we've achieved over the course of the year. These are sort of day-to-day activities that we're engaged in, and I just want to highlight some of the key metrics in accounting services. For example, they processed some 500,000 invoices, paying in excess of $10 billion to vendors. Our revenue services division, headed by Casey Brandon over there, processed over 1.6 million tax bills and administered property tax accounts in the order of about 800,000, in addition to utility accounts in excess of 500,000. Our pension payroll and benefits division processed over 800,000 paychecks and 80,000 pension checks. And last but not least, I don't know if Michael's here, Michael Pachelek, who heads our procurement office, they processed $1.8 billion in goods and services. In terms of key service issues and priorities for 2018, I'm just going to put them in essentially two buckets. The first deals with financial policy and financial oversight and governance. And these types of initiatives, these types of priorities essentially focus on introducing a long-term fiscal plan, long-term financial plan. We'll be supporting the city manager's office on that initiative, and I expect that it'll be before council probably in Q2 of next year. We're also implementing the financial control bylaw, and I mentioned the new investment policies. In addition to that, we'll be dealing with a number of key and very complex legislative matters, including, for example, we're probably going to be bringing for council consideration the introduction of a hotel tax and possibly a tax on short-term rentals. That's likely to be before Executive Committee in the first quarter of next year. We're also monitoring a whole host of legislative and regulatory regimes that could potentially impact our businesses and processes, and they're highlighted for you on slide 14. The other bucket that I spoke about primarily deals with business transformation and modernization, and that will involve 4 key areas in the Treasurer's Office, the most notable of which is key transformation of our procurement processes, including supply chain management and strategic sourcing. The other 3 areas will focus on technology platform upgrades, predominantly upgrades to our payroll system, financial accounting system, tax and utility billing systems. I'm going to move really quickly to slide 18, which identifies for you our gross budget of $92.8 million. It's being funded primarily from the revenue sources that are indicated on the right chart. Tax-supported piece accounts for about 41% of the budget at $37.9 million, with the balance being funded from reserves and IDRs. Slide 19 shows the progress that we've collectively made to achieve a 0% target. Last year, our net budget was $37.85 million, and again, our request this year is the same, no change. Slide 20 shows for you the pressures that we embarked going into the 2018 budget process. These pressures amounted to about $760,000, and if you refer to slides 21 and 22, 21, we found a number of efficiencies that dealt with half those pressures at $380,000, and slide 22 identifies the other half, where we're recommending very modest revenue strategies, primarily inflationary increases to fees to bridge the gap and meet the zero budget target. In terms of new and enhanced services, that's indicated on slide 23. We're requesting 2 positions to support the newly created Toronto Investment Board. I mentioned that earlier, that this is the board that will be implementing council's investment policies, and the 2 positions that are requested, one resides in corporate finance, the other in accounting services. And we're also seeking 3 temporary positions up until 2020 to support the merger of the city's 5 legacy pension funds with OMERS. New and enhanced services that are not included in the 2018 budget. The AG, in her report, recent report, asked us to look at an administrative fee, the viability or the appropriateness of having an administrative fee that's charged for processing refunds to people that have overpaid. So customers that have in fact, given the city more than is properly due, she asked us to look at whether we should charge a fee for providing them with refunds. We don't think that's an appropriate thing to be doing, and hence it's not included in the budget.
I do not think so.
Right. So I'm going to skip to slide 30, really the guts of our capital budget request. And you'll see in slide 30 the 10-year capital program. We've requested $52 million. These are for really investments in primarily system upgrades in the areas showing in the pie chart to the left, in revenue services, accounting, purchasing. And the chart on the right illustrates for you the funding sources that are proposed to fund those investments. About 75% of the funding will come from tax-supported debt, the balance from reserves. Slide 31 identifies the key projects that are included in that 10-year capital program. Again, as I mentioned earlier, primarily financial services upgrades to systems and platforms. Slide 32 provides a profile of the capital plan, the bulk of which, as you'll note, is related to state of good repairs and service improvements. And finally, Mr. Chair, slide 33 just provides you with the funding sources. Again, the bulk of the funding source is from tax-supported debt. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Joe. Questions? We'll go with Councillor Carroll, then
Yeah, I just
Nanziata.
have one on the fee that is included in the proposal. The fee around when a customer gets bounced out of the pre-authorized payment plan for property taxes because they were NSF, and so the minute they're NSF, we bounce them out of pre-authorized payment. And I don't know how many times 311 deals with it, but we often deal with maybe half a dozen times a year, each counselor's office, times 44, ends up dealing with the person who didn't notice they were bounced out. By the time they find out, they're in arrears a couple of quarters, and because they just haven't noticed it coming out of their operating account. So I'm wondering if I'm okay with the fee, but in conjunction with the fee, are we also looking at dealing with financial institutions and looking at why we have to bounce them out? Because I know that for the banks themselves, you could, a council or a constit raised this to me, and I suddenly realized, hey, that happened to me once. He's right, that he could miss his mortgage payment. They don't cancel all pre-authorized payment functions for later. They simply call them and say, didn't go through this month. We're going to put you in overdraft, fix this, or we got a problem. But they have a warning system for their own. And the constit said, at a similar case where it was my hydro bill, the financial institution overdrew me, and it didn't change my pre-authorized payment plan or anything. And I cleaned up my act in a couple of days. He said, why can't you guys do that? And I thought, he's right. I've had similar experiences in the course of my lifetime. Is there a reason why given that this is a tax bill, and yet we can't get a similar service from financial institutions?
Through the chair, we actually follow up on these, and I think we give them one opportunity to do that. We also
a day or a payment? When you say opportunity, what do you mean?
In terms of they can be back in the program unless they do it again.
Oh, okay.
And certainly, council passed a motion that allows us, for customers with good histories, to even waive this fee if they can show that they've had a good history and that it's a one-time thing in 5 years.
Right.
So that we do have some levers this year that we didn't have previously.
Okay, so the fee won't be onerous in that we really will be dealing with people who are chronic problems, more or less, when each time we're charging this fee.
That is certainly the intention.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Nanziata.
But when there's an NSF check that we receive, we get charged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and we do
There's
charge
a fee. And we charge that back, right? Yeah, okay. The new and enhanced that are included in the budget, the merger of the city's 5 pension plans. So at the end of the day, there would be a savings for us, correct?
Yes, there will be large savings that was reported to council in camera once these are all done. This is just that it's a very regulated process, and there is a lot of work to do to get us through all of the approvals and the transfer over to OMERS.
Yeah.
So these are temporary positions.
Right, thank you, that's good. So just a question, I remember at one point, we had a huge percentage of uncollected revenue, you know, from invoices, and they were overdue, and we had issues with collecting. What is the percentage now as far as, because I know when the invoices were coming in and we were not sending them out, so is it, what is the percentage now as far as collecting the money? Because we had a real problem a few years ago.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
So with respect to property taxes, which are, you know, account for $4.1 billion of our revenue,
Yeah.
the vast majority of property taxpayers do pay on time. There's only a very small fraction, and Casey can supplement to my answer. There's a very small fraction that don't pay on time, and those that don't pay on time are assessed, you know, penalties as well as interest.
But other than the tax bill, invoices that you send out to companies, or, you know, I'm not talking residents that you send out, that we were having problems collecting. So what's that at this point?
So perhaps Sandra could provide some advice on that.
I actually don't have a figure for citywide because accounts receivable is actually decentralized across the city.
Okay.
But I can certainly get that. But we do report on the treasurer's report on a biannual basis, the write-offs that we've done that the treasurer has authority to do. Yeah, so I can certainly get that citywide number.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Davis.
So you're eliminating 10 positions and adding 5. Is that sort of the summary?
That is the case, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, no, that is not the case. We're adding 3 net.
Well, then, if you're eliminating 10, you're adding how many?
Adding 13.
You're adding 13. Okay.
2 of which are temporary until 2023.
Okay. So I thought 5 positions are identified here, 3 in eliminating 10, and you're adding a senior person for the investment board. Oh, two positions and upgrading for the existing one.
Yes.
For the investment board, and then you're adding 3 people to deal with the OMERS merger. Where are the others then?
So if I could take you to slide 38, the complement changes. It's in the appendix.
Okay.
And it details exactly the positions that are being deleted as well as added.
Can you just walk me through that then? 7 to, this says 18.
Councillor, if you could just turn over to the next slide.
Okay. Oh, those are cost drivers. Sorry, I was on the wrong slide. Okay. There's the 13. Okay. And I thought I saw as well, purchasing had some reductions. Is that office of this, where's the purchasing reductions?
Okay, so through the chair, the purchasing reductions are a net 7 addition in purchasing. There are actually certain positions.
Okay.
So it's a reduction of, I believe it's 5 and an addition of 12.
Okay. On the financial management, long-term fiscal plan, your deliverables for 2018, you're reporting on that in March. You know, this thing here is always so difficult. I shouldn't sit here, yes. You're coming back in March, but you're also dealing with revenue tools, and you identified 2, but there were others that you're still supposed to be reporting back on. Are you suggesting now that hotel tax and short-term rental are the two where we are going to be recommending new revenues and none of the others?
No, that's not what I'm suggesting at all. In fact, I should have clarified that we're supporting the city manager in the development of the long-term fiscal plan, and it will be effectively the city manager's report to which we address other revenue options. But it baked into this budget is where we're realizing that we are in fact implementing a hotel tax in accordance with council instructions. So council did give its mind to that revenue tool last year, instructed us to go engage with the province on getting the appropriate legislation. That legislation has been tabled, and we expect to be before executive committee in the new year with a proposal dealing with the hotel tax, as well as potentially a tax on short-term rentals. With respect to other revenue options, that will be considered as part of the city manager's report.
Okay. And as well, you also have leverage city assets and other non-debt strategies to generate funding for unmet capital needs and offset new debt requirements. Are we talking again about asset sales such as hydro and the Toronto Parking Authority? Are we really going to go back over that in this term of office?
If I've given that impression, that was unintended. I do not believe that the city manager has any intention of revisiting the council decision which was made late last year with respect to potentially monetizing some of our assets.
Okay, well, that's a relief. And on the fees, so if I understand this second fee, outstanding utility fees and charges notice. So if you're sending me notice that I didn't pay last month, I'm going to pay $30 more?
Last question.
You're going to tack on a $30 charge if I didn't pay my bill?
Through you, Mr. Chair. This fee is for the transfer, and it was specifically for fees that are associated with the transfer of unpaid utility amounts at condominium properties. And so, because the condominium corporation is being billed for utility for the entire building, if those utility charges remain unpaid by the condominium corporation, at some point, we have to undertake to take that bill, divide it amongst all of the unit holders, and apportion the unpaid amount to the unit holders. This fee is then a notification to the individual unit holders that they have had an amount added to their tax.
We've had no discussion of that in a policy discussion.
In fact, that is a council-approved policy.
Oh,
the
when was that?
arrears.
Thank you. That's
May I have one more question, please?
one more question.
So I have seen the service counter review identified in the overall strategy, the overall presentation that Josie did. And I know that financial services, the tax counters are part of that. When are we going to see the counter strategy so we understand what services are going to be available in which civic centers?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that would have been a question for Ms. Scioli and her staff who are actually leading that project, right?
But I know that these folks are also involved.
They may be involved. I think the overall strategy, it's the channel and counter strategy that's part of the customer service strategy overall that's being implemented through her shop.
It's 10 years overdue.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. The last, we just have questions on legal services, if there are any. Well, they weren't in the room at the time, so I wanted to give them the opportunity to come down. So we do have the last questions of legal services.
Hold on.
Seeing none from committee members.
Can't even open. We're supposed to be operating paperlessly. And I wanted to ask about the mediation program. There was a mediation pilot project, and I'm wondering, I saw it was underspent or underutilized, and I'm wondering, and so there were reductions made, if I recall. So I'm wondering whether, is that, first of all, is that the case? And, or is that under court services? Maybe it's under court services. Are we expanding that? Am I asking the wrong question for the wrong budget?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you're referring, Councillor, to the
C of A.
This is
the TLAB
Yeah,
mediation project, so that's not in our budget.
that would be court services budget.
Okay, and court services was done yesterday?
We already did court service.
Right.
Okay,
If,
I missed it.
I think we did.
you could take that offline if you have some special questions.
You did court services
Yeah, we've
already?
done court services already.
Okay,
If there are questions offline, Councillor, we could help facilitate that.
that's okay.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We will see, we're recessed.
Just as a precaution, Councillor Davis came after we talked about, here's the flow of briefing note requests. The Monday is the last day,
Yes.
just to.
Do you have any briefing note requests? I prefer them coming in as soon as possible. If they come in at the last minute, there's no guarantee that you'll be able to get them through.
Oh, believe me, I know that.
Have fun this weekend.
I'll move to adjourn. I'll move to, favor carried.
We're in recess till Monday morning. No, actually, this is one long meeting. The 4 days are actually one meeting, so we're recessing till Monday morning at 9:30.
Yeah, okay. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah.
Have a nice